Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today I am joined by Kac Young to Radiate Intelligence. Kac is the author of Crystal Power, 12 Essential Crystals for Health and Healing. This is right up my alley. Hello, Kac. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, then you'll see all of these wonderful books behind Kac. These are all things that you've written.
Yes.
All your titles. Oh my goodness. You're so prolific and you do so many of the things that I enjoy and that I'm into. So Crystal Power. Why did you decide to write a book about crystals and gems?
Well, it really kind of all started back when I was in show business. I was a producer director for 25 years, and we have a thing called a hiatus at the end of each filming or taping session for television shows. And that hiatus, it gives a break to the production staff and crew and enables the writers to get on and write the next season. So in that time, I would find ways throughout my life to connect with spiritual and metaphysical teachers. And one of those people was Frank Alper. And he had worked for IBM for many, many years as a scientist. He was responsible for exploring how crystals worked in technology and computers and what they were developing in the telephone world, in televisions. So he became so enamored with what crystals can do technologically that he began to apply them metaphysically as well. So he actually left IBM, took all of his well-earned stock, and began teaching metaphysics and crystals. And I took one of his classes. So in doing that, I learned about crystals. I learned an awful lot of technology about them and why they were important, not just, oh, gee, they're pretty, or, oh, gee, I like their shape. It was really, a more scientific approach. So then he did an implantation ceremony with all of us students who had taken the first level and come back and taken the intermediate and advanced with him. And he came to me and he did the implantation and he said, oh, I can tell you have the gift of stones. Well, at the time, I didn't know what that meant, but I began to collect crystals and buy them. And if I studied shamanism in Hawaii for a while, and I would find a crystal or two there. And I collected my own specific group of crystals. So after a while, I began to use them in my practices as well, in my spiritual counseling, in hypnotherapy. And when people wanted to change their life, I wanted to show them how they can use a little bit extra power from nature in connecting with the crystals and how they can really accelerate their change. And in doing so, I learned a lot myself and information came to me. And then when Frank died in 2011, I believe it was, I contacted his wife and said, here's what I do. And I teach classes and I use them in my work. So she gave me a lot of Frank's old files and she gave me a lot of things that he had worked on and said, here, continue it. Well, I felt that that was a beautiful gift and that what I wanted to do was share what I knew from the ground up about crystals and how people could really integrate them and use them in their life. So I chose 12 basic crystals to start with. Get to know them as friends, get to know them intimately, begin to work with them. Don't be overwhelmed with all of the crystals and all of the shapes and all of the complicated things that people get into. Just start little. And I wanted them to really become educated in these 12 crystals. So that's a very long answer, but that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to pass on what I have learned so that other people can begin to utilize them and respect them at the deep level that I do.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. Of course, I use crystals in my practice as well. You can see I've got an aventurine angel on the shelf, snowflake obsidian. I can't remember what this stone is called, but I've got them all over. They're powerhouses, and so 12 of them. Which 12 did you choose?
Well, it's all in the book. I chose them because they are if I were setting a dinner party for 12 of my best friends and I wanted them to get along and support each other and have good conversation and be interactive, which 12 would I select? So I did that with the crystals. I picked out 12 that I felt would be the good starting place for people to interact with them, to get to know them, and ones that would be able to interact with each other and support each other in the work that you want to do with them. So I selected my 12 basic crystals that I thought would be, level one. And of course, the first one is the all healer, the universal healer, clear rock quartz, rock crystal quartz. So that's, the number one guy. If I just took one to a desert island, it would be that one.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm sure you've got amethyst in there, citrine, many others as well. But I love the idea of the dinner party. This is a visual for me that just you want ones that contribute to well together, interact together, cover all of the bases of the interesting conversation that you would want to have at this dinner party, right? I love this concept. And so you've been using them for quite a while, and you said you use them in your practice. So you do some fantastic stuff. Fill us in on all of the wonderful things that you do.
Well, I write, I use crystals, I see clients, I figure out I use different modalities. Now, I believe you may not have had a chance to read the book yet, so I'll make sure that you get a copy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how we missed that, but the book has a lot of healing modalities towards the end. I use chakras. I use the 12 laws of karma. I use astrology, and I use the archetypal wheel as well. And what I have set up is when people come to see me, whatever it is they want to heal, I really wait for them to tell me things about themselves that will lead me to suggest one of the healing modalities that we might use. For example, if people came to me and they were speaking a different foreign language, I would have to make sure that I understood that language before I could help them. So I find a common ground between me and my clients, and I use that as a way that we can communicate, experiment, interact, and really have something besides just their story to talk about, if you know what I mean. We want to have their feelings involved. We want to have archetypes. We want to have goddesses. We want to have whatever it is they relate to. So I am dexterous among all of these disciplines, and whatever I think works for them, that's what we work in. So we might take, for example, if someone likes goddesses or angels or whatever they are attuned to, we will take the qualities of Diana, and perhaps we will look at what Demeter can offer. Maybe we need to bring in Artemis, perhaps Hera needs to be strengthened. So whatever the parts and participles are of all of us that make up who we are, that's what we work on. We take away what is maybe unbalanced in one way or another, and then we add in what we need. So I do that with crystal help as well, and by using essential oils. So whatever I think will bring them into a real growth into the qualities that they want to manifest, that's the technique that I use, and I will do crystals. One thing I don't do is put the same color crystal on the chakra, for example. A lot of therapists do that.
Right. Yeah, they do.
That's really not effective. All that does is say, it just like identifies, okay, here's the area. But what you want to do is work with that. Either we are able to communicate, or we have a reserve, a problem with that. So we'd want to strengthen communication. What's blocking that? Is it our thinking? Is it our emotions? Is it our belief system? Why can't we communicate our needs, our wants, our loves, our fears? What's wrong? What's blocking that? So rather than putting the turquoise stone there, I will take other stones that represent what the blockages are, and something that will break those blockages up and give them what they need. Perhaps it's self-love. So I would choose a rose quartz. Perhaps it is tourmaline. They need black tourmaline to get rid of some negativity. So I will choose the stones based on what we want to take away and what we want to put in, or what we want to support. So that's how I would use them in the practice. But there's no set way. It varies with each client, and whatever they resonate to, that's what I bring out and concentrate on.
Oh, I love that. Yes, because there's so many different ways we can use crystals, and I love your approach. I'm looking at the galley of your book, an advanced copy of your book, and you really break it down. You've got the first chapter is Art of Healing with Crystals, just kind of a general overview, but you also break it down into the colors of the crystals. Healing through opposites, which I love. That is beautiful, wonderful. I can't wait to bring that into my practice as well. But also essential oils, which I also use essential oils in my practice, which is nice. The laws of karma with these different crystals, archetypes, astrology, all of the different ways to use these crystals is just very comprehensive. And all of this came from this gentleman?
No, of course not. This is my work, but the basis of how I got involved with crystals came from Frank Alpert. So no, all of this is what I have developed over 35 years, and this is what, how it has evolved in me. And I'm hoping that this will be the seed that starts in other people, and they will take this and improve on it and make it their own and use it as a starting point. Start thinking out of the box, start thinking in combinations, start putting a lot of things together that support the work where you're headed. I mean, each client that I take in, I really do a lot of pre-work on and find out a lot about them as much as I can, their background, whatever they have told me, whatever is out there in print, whatever. I sometimes work with famous people, so that's easy to find. And I would find out what might be a history, or, I can kind of read where they're at when we talk or when we get together. So yes, it all fits in together to paint a picture for me that I can then work with how to help them move forward in whatever area they want to.
Yes, wonderful. So you've got quite a background in this. You've been doing this healing work for quite a while. You've got a PhD, and you do hypnotherapy, but also production, film production. That's kind of an unusual thing for someone who works with crystals and who does healing modalities. How did you get into all of this? How did you get into healing work?
Well, when I worked my way up in television from stage manager to associate director, director, producer. And as I was coming up the ladder, one of the first shows I was on was the Share series for CBS. And I was the second stage manager, and the head stage manager dropped dead in front of me one morning at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was only 55, and he had been a dancer, so he was very trim, and but he smoked and he drank a lot of Coca-Cola and sort of lived on that. And one day, just boom, heart attack out. So I had the whole show to run at the ripe old age of about 23. And our guests were Elton John and Michael Jackson. And, it was a pretty heavy slate. And I was the only, I was the head person all of a sudden. So I decided, after collapsing at the end of the day, that I needed to begin to take care of myself, or I could be dead at 55 as well. And the thing is that back in those times, in the 70s and the 80s, women had to work a lot harder than men to just be in the middle. And if I wanted to succeed, I knew I was going to have to be twice as good, twice as diligent, twice as smart as, my competition. So I didn't want to overwork myself, and I wanted to have a balanced life. And that's where it really began. It began with a death. And I began to use my 6 weeks in my hiatus periods as time to really sow my garden, the garden of wealth, of knowledge that would provide me with ways to heal myself, to help heal others, and still pursue the very fun and challenge of show business. So that's how that started.
Oh my goodness. And then which avenues did you feel like you needed to pursue first? Where'd you even start? Where'd you turn to?
I learned about crystals, and then I began to experiment with essential oils and Bach flowers. And then I got my first PhD. I have 3, and I got my first PhD in natural healing. And then I have another doctorate in naturopathy because I wanted to learn all about herbs and how to really stay healthy naturally. And then I got my other doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy, and thank goodness for the online ability and computer ability to do distance learning, because I did all of this in the late 80s and 90s. And that's when I really got my education in between the shows that I was doing. And, and I did some pretty, heavy shows. I toured with Neil Diamond in 1976 and did a live concert from Australia. I did rock and roll shows with Dick Clark on a series called In Concert. I shot the Rolling Stones. It was their fake last concert, but we shot that, at the Coliseum. And so a lot of music shows, a lot of series that I created for some big sponsors, and I won some awards, and it was fun. It was always busy, but there's always a time off. There's always a little downtime, and I didn't want to just, sit there and stare at the walls. I wanted to learn something different and alternative, and so I did. Plus, when I did talk shows, when I directed talk shows, you meet a lot of interesting people, and they come through your set, and you don't get to interact with them too much, but you get to be exposed to their information and their learning. So I had a good education. I picked up on all kinds of psychic people, and people who do alternative health. And so it was a wonderful education that I got, and I was able to then parlay it into my life and turned a lot of it into books.
Support for the Radiate Wellness podcast is made possible in part by listeners like you. Would you like to support this podcast? Visit radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast for more information.
You have written about 23 books.
25 now, but yeah, 23 when that press release came out. Now it's 25.
Oh my God. I mean, but not just all about one thing. There's the Food Lover's Guide to Heart Healthy Eating, Discover Your Spiritual Genius, Feng Shui, Dancing with the Moon. There's 1 Minute Cat Manager, which just cracks me up. You can't manage cats. Or maybe you can. I don't know. The Enlightened Person's Guide to Raising a Dog. I mean, it's just so many different areas that you've written in and practiced in. How have you crammed all of this education into one life? That's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret.
What's that?
I have Irish roots, and we are storytellers. So whenever some experience happens to me, I tell it like a story. And some of my friends would say, "Oh my gosh, you should write books." And so I began to think, all right, well, when I adopted a dog named Tallulah, it was something that I hadn't planned on. I've raised cats. I've had the honor of serving them for 40 years. So I adopted a dog, and I thought this would be a good thing to do. And she was lovely to begin with. And then all of her problems started to show up from when she had been abused as a puppy. She had been adopted and as a puppy from a shelter, kept for 3 years, and then returned. And in that process, the people that had her probably didn't know that you shouldn't taunt a dog, you shouldn't threaten a dog. She came to me, and she was afraid of the garden hose. She was afraid of any kind of a stick or broom that you would hold. She was afraid of a hairbrush. So all of these things mounted up to be things that were the result of abuse. Now, one of my very good friends lives in England, and her name is Lisa Tenzin-Dolma. And Lisa happens to have an organization called it's the International School of Dog Psychology, Canine Psychology, ISCP. And so she was advising me what to do. And I said, "Hey, Lisa, let's write this down." She said, "Good idea." So I would write the story about what Tallulah did or didn't do, or, what I was trying to get her to do. And then Lisa chimes in on the other side and says, "All right, now here's how you accomplish that. Here's what you do." So it's really kind of a living how-to manual of getting a dog. Now, I happen to have adopted a dog that is very, very sweet and very, very darling, but had some behavioral problems. So Lisa specializes in taking care of these behavioral problems. So we came up with a book that entertaining, it makes a lot of people laugh, and then they get the corrective measures. So, and we're very, supportive of animal rights, and we want people to train them fearlessly without any kind of fear or abuse. So we wrote that book hoping that people would buy it and give it away. And first, people who are interested in a dog or who have one already and just want to learn more. So that's that. And then the 1 Minute Cat Manager followed because I said, well, I learned a lot of things about dealing with my cats, and people just come to me all the time. Oh, my cat's doing this, help me with that. Probably because I have, a doctorate in natural healing. They think I also know everything about pets, but so I would help them. And then I figured, well, let me talk about my techniques that I have developed with cats and how effective they are. And mostly it is to honor the cat and to say these are different creatures than people. And we must respect who they are, what they do, and then we can get results. And I've had cats that have lived 24 years. I have a new cat now that is the subject of my Facebook, and he is into things and he is hilarious. So of course I'm writing about that, and of course it will be a book. He's just on all the time. And I got him from the hood. I got him in South Central Los Angeles. So he already came here with a fighting spirit. He's just fabulous. He's just wonderful. I'm so pleased and honored to have him in my life.
What's his name?
Spirit.
Of course.
He came with that name. They had named him. He came from Kitty Bungalow Charm School for Wayward Cats. That's where he came from. And they had named him Spirit.
I have to make a pilgrimage to this place.
Oh, yeah, it's best. It's right in the heart of South Central Los Angeles. And little Spirit was there, and I said, oh yes, you are mine, let me get you. So I got him through a friend in New York who knew some people at Kitty Bungalow, and so my connections come through a friend in New York, of all places. So anyway, that's how he got here. But yeah, he'll be a book too, because you just can't resist all these wonderful things they do.
They are hilarious, and they each and every one of them has their own personality.
Yes, indeed.
Oh my gosh, it is so fun. So I mean, it's just amazing, all of these different topics and titles that you have written about. What do you think is maybe your favorite thing to write about?
Oh gosh, whatever I'm interested in the moment, Yeah. So I've got 2 novels that I wrote, one last spring and one last fall. And I'm going to be pitching those as television series coming up. And I've got another project that I'm going to attempt to write a screenplay for, because I think it's really an important book. It's very, very important. So I'll try that. We'll see what happens.
Oh man, that sounds great. Well, in your production chops, or your production resume is really pretty impressive, with General Hospital, the Showtime Comedy Club Network, People's Choice Awards. I mean, so many different areas that you have touched with that. But I see on your website, which is kacyoung.com, Kac young.com, you're also a licensed religious science minister, a certified archetypal therapist and counselor, a certified meditation teacher, a career coach for actors and directors, medical Qigong teacher, and a former pilot of private air. Do you ever sleep?
Sure, every now and then.
Every now
when
and
I can fit it in.
Wow, you really make time of your hiatus periods, apparently.
Yes.
Whenever you get a chance to rest after a show. And are you still in production, theater and television and film production?
Well, I have over the past few years, I've shot a couple of pilots, but I haven't worked steadily as a in production for a while. I wanted to get a lot of these books out of my system. I wanted to do that, and now I'm ready to go back into uh, television, but I don't want to go in on the production level. It's an industry for young people, and it's a place where you can spend a lot of your young energy and life and times. And I've done that. I've worked the 14-hour days, and I've worked 7 days a week round the clock for, months on end. I don't want to do that anymore. I have a balanced life, and I do have clients, and I teach qigong, and I like to have people understand that you really must integrate body, mind, and soul. And sometimes the television industry will try to vacuum up all of that from you, although it has gotten better. It's a little bit more balanced. People are actually having lives and trying to balance things out. So, but it's a big commitment. Everything else stops. That's what you do. And I have other commitments in my life now that I want to uphold. So I don't know that I would get into production, but I certainly will sell my novel. I will certainly be there to oversee the scripts and to, act as a producer, executive producer, that kind of thing. Whatever I can negotiate for myself.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, you certainly do have a well-rounded, balanced life. You also have a podcast.
I
Tell us
do.
about your podcast. Yeah, tell us about your podcast.
Well, it's wonderful. There is a person named Hercules Invictus, and he interviewed me on his show many times. And he is in New Jersey, and he has a whole block of time that he has purchased, I guess, from the CERN network. And he has many different hosts. My podcast is the first Wednesday of every month, and then he has someone do the second Wednesday and the third Wednesday. That's just Wednesday in 1 hour time slot, and then he has about 4 different shows that he personally does. So I can really handle just one once a month. There's a lot of research, a lot of reading of the person's book, a lot of constructing the questions. There's a lot of pre-work that has to be done. And I like to bring my guests on being really familiar with who they are and what they're doing, because they've given up an hour of their time to be with me. So I feel I want to educate myself in their world first. Then it's a really good interview. Then I can really bring out things that are important to them and things that they have written about and what they're doing in their life. And so I have an amazing group of guests that have become friends. A couple of them and I are talking about some projects together. So it's kind of some interesting way to meet people in this framework, and to meet other souls that are after the same thing. So I do enjoy that. The art of healing is I don't know, I'm doing a whole institute about healing, and I already have up now a feng shui certification. So if someone wants to get their certification in feng shui, they can take the course on my art of healing. I guess it's a school. It's my institute. So, and I'm going to put up a crystal education and essential oils education. as I develop them and put them on there for people to have. But I will have courses in a lot of different things within the next 5 years. You'll be able to, I want to pass on to the world what I've learned in my life and teach it in the way that I would want to be taught. So that is something that I'm going to leave this institute behind. And so I've got many years left. I'll just be working on that, probably put up one course and certification per year. That's my goal.
Oh my gosh. And where can we find that? That was not in the materials that I saw. I see it. I'm looking at your website now. Is this a separate website?
Yeah, this is a separate website. And I don't really publicize it that much right now because it only has the one certification course on it. And I think it's called AHA, the Art of Healing Academy. And the artofhealingacademy.com, I believe, is what how you get to it. So anyway, that one certification course is there, and I'll be building it. And then we'll start to market it once I have more than one course up there.
Right. Yes, here it is. Here it is. I love how the acronym is AHA.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, you got that. Great.
Oh, of course.
Good.
Of course. AHA. I get it. Aha, where has this been all my life? Aha, there's a better way to be. Aha, there's a better way to work with people. Oh, absolutely. I think that's beautiful and wonderful. So, the course is divided into body, mind, and spirit sections. This is
right.
Great. Yeah, you never rest. You've got a lot going on. It's just wonderful. And you see clients currently?
I do. Not as much in COVID, but I do. I have clients online. I prefer to work with someone in person because I find that it's really, I like the in-person dynamic, but it's been hard to do that in COVID. And but now we can start to open up probably this summer and the fall as people become vaccinated and, can prove that, then I can work hands-on with them.
Are you vaccinated yet?
Absolutely.
Me too. Get full immunity by tomorrow.
Oh, good. Good for you.
So exciting. Right. And so you, of course, are in the Los Angeles area, the Los Angeles,
Yes.
California area, and can see clients there. But really, on your website, there's everything that we would need to know, including all of your books as well, and your blog, and all of the raves about you. And I love that you do Bach flower remedies. These are powerful, and I think they just don't get the due that they should. So I'm just seeing this now on your book page, your shop page. So tell me how you got into Bach flower essences and remedies.
Well, here's a fun anecdote. You pronounce it batch because that's how they pronounced it in Wales. And Edward Batch was a metaphysical. He was a medical doctor specializing in bacteriology, and he even came up with some patents and particular methods that are still used today, similar to homeopathy, in that he would take a bit of what was bothering you and re-inject it into you to build up an immunity against it, or for it, really. So in that way, he used a little bit of the same thing to cure you. And then he decided that there were 7 different personalities in the world, and each personality type attracted a certain kind of illness. And based on his breakdown of that, he came up with his 12 healing premises. And from that, he developed his flower remedies because he watched in nature how how nature and birds and other creatures worked in the conservatory in London, and he would find that they would do certain things to heal, and that they would go to certain plants to heal, and that they knew instinctively what to do to cure their ills. So he began to say, well, if they do that, what's wrong with using flowers for human beings as well, and flower essences? He wanted to really and truly do no harm. He wanted not to hurt anyone with an injection. He didn't believe that pain cured anything. What he wanted was gentle, light, vibrational healing, that the human form, which is all atomic vibration, we are all vibrations and we are chemicals. He wanted those to respond to the vibrations of the flowers. And so that's how he began his work. And he was extremely sensitive, very, very intuitive. And he was very personable. He loved people. He loved life. And people flocked to him in this little house that he had in England. And I have been there. I've been to the gardens. And it's very, very sweet and very rural and very calming to be there. And that's where he lived and worked. And so that approach then caught on with his assistant, who continued his work. And then she taught others. And so it's handed down information. I mean, he was still alive in the 30s and 40s, and it's still a new science, if you will. But because he was a medical doctor and because he knew how the human being worked from a medical perspective, his thoughts and opinions and approaches were medical in nature, but spiritual and holistic and vibrational in the other.
That is wonderful. And thank you for filling me in about that. It's pronounced batch, because I've only seen it written, and it's really very, it is groundbreaking stuff, even decades and decades later, almost 30 years, almost 100 years later. But I think that essential oils have kind of eclipsed them in a way, but these are just even more broadly applicable in some ways, these flower essences. And I love that you pull those in as well. It's more common in Europe. I'm not finding it as much here in the States. So wonderful. Yeah, what do you have coming up besides the novels and the possible projects that are coming out of that?
Well, I just finished a book called Magical Trees, and I submitted it April 1st to my Mango publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't even finished reading it yet. It's 60,000 words, so they haven't even finished. But we'll be probably publishing that in the fall. And that was a very fun, exciting book to write. So it's all about the magical powers of trees and how we need to bond with trees as human beings in order to survive. So it's all the gifts the trees have spiritually and physically, and how we can use their medicine. And I even have recipes in the back for how to cook with tree parts.
Really? What kind of tree parts can you eat?
Well, we'll start out with acacia, and there is a recipe for deep fried acacia blossoms, which is basically a tempura batter on acacia blossom flowers. And you fry them in a healthy oil and set them aside, and you have crispy acacia blossoms. It's very fun.
Oh, that sounds yummy. Oh my goodness, I like the idea of foraging in your yard or the forest for dinner. Wonderful. I can't wait for that to come out. That'll be fun. We'll have to have you back on the podcast to talk about that.
Thank you.
It'll be super fun. Now, do you think there's anything else that we should know about the work that you do? Anything we haven't covered, haven't mentioned yet?
Well, I think it is to approach the world we live in with respect. And if I can teach that or have people understand that no matter where you look and what you touch, it really requires the human being to be humble, to respect the universe, to be a gracious guest for the time that we are here, to not ruin it, but to help it grow and expand and not destroy it, and to understand that we are a small part of the life cycle that comes across this planet. And it is our job to preserve that for the future.
Wonderful. That's a great message. And I can tell that through line goes through all of your books and all of your work. And your work with the animals and also in your work with women's rights as well.
Sure.
Right, absolutely. So Kac Young, your website is kacyoung.com, kacyoung.com. And then also, the Art of Healing Academy.com, which I'm really excited about. We can find your books online. We can find all of your books on your website, as well through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all major book publishers and outlets. Thank you so much for joining me today to Radiate Intelligence. It's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on, and good luck with the rest of your podcast.
Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.